Shalom and good day, all. This is Teal29 back again for another DC review, and in this DC review I'll be covering Absolute Power, Issue 4 and DC All-In Special, Issue 1, to which I'll have to show, of course, both sides of it, because it's a wraparound cover. But I'll now get things ready for the first one that I'll be covering. So starting off with first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside of the story? In some essence it does, to which I give it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move in relation to the internal art and also what's happening story-wise with the characters as we have a look around the beginning, middle and of course the end. So as we move into the beginning of the story, we end up catching up with Damian Wayne, and of course we get to see other superheroes that are present as they take her or move into the Supermax prison to also do some work there. And we learn that there are some things taking place on Gamora Island. As we start to move towards the middle of the story, we get to see some of the heroes go up against some of the villains that are present in this story. And last but not least, we also get the return of Dreamer. If only they kept her dead, I think it would have made the story a little bit better. Just saying. At least it would have been something for consequences for her actions for what she did with Jay's family. And of course, they still could have killed off Jay, which would have been good. To show that, yes, there are some consequences that take place that do affect a lot of people. And of course, we get the original Mount Justice, or the return of Mount Justice, for the new Justice League headquarters, which will no doubt play a part in further stories. And last but not least, sort of like left to find out what's happening with the rest of the story in DC All-In. So before we move into DC All-In, for the internal art, I give it a 7.5 out of 10, as I did actually quite enjoy some of the art panels in this story. Next is the area of the story itself. So considering what this story has, including tie-ins, were there any comic book references to any tie-ins? No, there weren't. Next is the area of time, to which we had 48 hours later. The next area is locations, which we had Gamora Island, Themyscira, the Supermax prison. We also had Failsafe headquarters, or Failsafe lab. We had the return of Mount Justice, Multiversal Gate. Moving into the last thing, and that is the cast of characters. Of course, we got to see members of the Justice League there, as well as members of the Titans and other characters that made an appearance. Some of the key characters were Green Arrow, Amanda Waller, Brainiac Queen. Of course, we had Batman, Superman, Task Force 7, which revolves around the Amazo / somewhat fail-safe type robots. We had Wonder Woman, John Kent. We had the original Superman, Damian Wayne Robin, Nightwing, Flash. Of course, we had Dreamer. And we didn't quite get to see Jay in this either, so that's one good thing. For the overall storytelling, I give it a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move into DC All-In. Seeing that this DC All-In it's in 2 parts, but we also have a wraparound cover. This being the wraparound cover. So we'll start things off with the area of the Alpha, and then we'll move on to the area of the Omega. So we'll get to see some of the things that take place in the Alpha part of the story. So beginning, middle, end, which in technicality in this case of the story, the middle is the end. So as the story begins, we get to see all of the heroes starting to come together, and we learn that that Justice League Unlimited is actually going to come to make an appearance, which is going to involve a lot of heroes, including Damian Wayne and many others. We get a bit of history and an indication of some of the events that have taken place, and we learn that these events take place 52 days later. We also do see the 52 days later return on the Omega side as well. So at least here we get to see the long list of heroes that are now a part of this, and of course the help of Booster Gold. As we move a little bit forward towards the end of the story, we learn that the character of Booster Gold is actually important for this story, because we learn that due to a particular event, which has to do with the death of Darkseid, Darkseid ends up using his energies to create his own, I guess, somewhat universe. And that takes place on the side of the Omega, at which this is both the end and also the beginning of the Omega side. So this side being the cover for the Omega. And moving into the beginning of this story, we get to see some of the things that Darkseid is involved in. We get to see what's happening with the area of Apocalypse, plus we also do get some references on both sides having to do with comic book references, which is really good and also really important to any story. So we get to see Heaven, Hell, Dark Side of the Moon. So we get quite a bit happening here. Slowly moving towards the end, we also get to see the character of the Spectre, to which we learn that Darkseid merges with the character of the Spectre. We get to see a little bit more take place, and how things start to appear or start to come about in the appearance of, I guess, the Omegaverse. Until we return back to the ending, which is the middle. So for the internal art, or for the cover, I give a 7.5 out of 10. For the internal art, I give a 7 out of 10. Moving into the area of the story, did we get any comic book references? Yes, we did, to Dark Knight's Death Metal, as well as the Absolute Power Run, even though it did have to take its course in the story. The time that we got to see in the story was 52 days later, which took place in both the Alpha story and the Omega story. The locations that we got to see here were Apocalypse, Earth, Heaven, Hell, Dark Side of the Moon. We also got the Eclipso, which I actually think that's a character, not a place. I might have put that in the wrong area. My mistake. Next is the members, or the cast of characters. We had the Justice League members, the Teen Titans, Booster Gold. Of course, we had many of those who made up the villain side, including Darkseid and Apocalypse, and the character of the Spectre. For the overall story's rating, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.